welcome to the Sports World with Patrik. Today, we're thrilled to have a very special guest, Kovács Attila, the sports director of Hungarian Ice Hockey Federation. Attila is at the forefront shaping the future of Hungarian ice hockey, working tirelessly to grow the sport and develop talent both at the grassroots and elite level. From overseeing player development programs to influencing the strategy of the national team, his work is pivotal to the next generation of hockey in Hungary. Attila, it's an honor to have you on the show. Let's start with this. As the sports director of ice hockey or the Hungarian Ice Hockey Federation, you're in a unique position to influence the direction of the sport. What is it that first inspired you to take on this role, and what do you see as the most exciting opportunity for Hungarian hockey right now?
Thank you, Patrick. Thank you for having me on the show. It's really nice to see a Hungarian flag behind you. So I've been working as sports director at the federation for a month now. So I'm quite new to the job. I'm still figuring out things and trying to assess how the federation is. Previously, I worked at an academy where our main focus was on coach development. We had Dwayne Sutter with us for a year, and Mark LaRose also. So we had some good names from North America here. And then last year we had the Finnish mentor coach at the academy that was really focusing on the development of these academies. I think what's really important about Hungarian hockey is how the funding works. I think it's really different from pretty much anywhere else in the world that I know of, at least. Hungary has a so-called TAO system, which in English would translate to a TRS system. So it's a tax return system. And basically, the idea behind it is that companies are incentivized to give their tax money to sports clubs instead of paying it to the government. So the idea is that the clubs get a pretty steady flow of money on a yearly basis, so they can plan ahead. And all of this money is going into youth sports. So we have quite high participation rate. Currently, there are 10,000 hockey players in Hungary, which I think on the regional level is quite high. We have 50 hockey rinks that are operating all over, 50 full-size hockey rinks around the country, which are operating and we have a lot of youth programs. So I think it's a big opportunity for Hungarian hockey that with this funding, with this steady flow of money coming in, we have the opportunity to really build something that on the long run can roll out. As you might know, at the moment we have both our men's and women's team in the Group A in the World Championships. For us, it would be a big goal to have our teams in the Olympics as well, which obviously is much harder because in the World Championships it's 16 teams in the top division or top group in Group A, while in the Olympics it's only 12 for men's. So it's something that we look forward to and we're working towards to make sure that we have an NHL player in the next coming years and also to play among the best on a steady basis.
Yeah, and so I know from my time in Hungary, when I was there, Székesfehérvár and Budapest, they sort of always carry the weight of the good players in Hungary. So, um, you know, how has the Hungarian Ice Hockey Federation contributed to the growth of ice hockey in the country in recent years, outside of Székesfehérvár and Budapest, and inside both of those cities?
Yeah, well, Fehérvár has always been the big club with most national team players traditionally, and obviously having a team in the Austrian league in the ICHL is quite a big thing. I think it's a competitive and strong league. So about half of our national team plays in Székesfehérvár's ICHL team. I think a second step to that was the introduction of these academies that were started in 2021. They're also funded by the government, but it's a different branch of it. The focus is really on high productivity and making sure that we make our national teams better. So now there's two academies in Budapest, one in Miskolc and one in Fehérvár, Székesfehérvár. And the idea is to have more pillars in our youth development to make sure that we have more players coming in and going out of our system. Um, and also with the federation, with my work in the upcoming years, our plan is to further expand that and to make sure that there's not four academies or not four bases that have all the knowledge, but we want to spread it into 12, 16 clubs basically. It's a timely process. Obviously, it doesn't happen overnight, but I think we're really committed on the long run, or in the long term development, and I really believe, religiously believe, basically that educating our coaches is the top priority, and that's where it all starts.
Yeah, and over here we talk a lot about hockey and how to grow hockey. And obviously, you guys are doing a really good job right now over there in Hungary, trying to expand the sport. But what are some of the challenges ice hockey faces in Hungary compared to traditional sports like soccer? Because I mean, really playing hockey is not as easy as just going to go buy a soccer ball or a football. You know, it's sort of you have to get the skates, you have to get the gear, you have to get on the ice and everything.
Yeah, I think obviously I don't have to explain how expensive hockey it is to anyone. I think even in the U.S. it's quite an expensive business. So it's hard. In Hungary, with the TRS system that we have, on the other hand, it's quite reachable for anyone because the TRS system basically pays for everything. So you can play hockey for the cost of basically any sport. So you don't it your budget doesn't really come into picking your sport, because you're going to be spending the same amount of money on soccer than you would be spending on hockey. So I think for parents, it's not really a choice of that. But in Budapest especially, but I think in the whole country, there's a lot of noise in sports. We have 5+1 sports that are basically have a government subsidy around it. So like handball and soccer and water polo, these basketball, and these are all sports that have quite low barrier to entry for youth players. So we really have to make sure that we're recruiting right and we're making sure that we're getting into our systems right. It's quite competitive between each other's sports. So a lot of players in Hungary, like you ask a kid, and most of them play soccer. And I think this is one of the issues that not only Hungarian hockey, but overall our sport, like all sports, struggle with in Hungary, is that with this TRS system, you're incentivized to have more players, to have as many players as possible, and bring in loads of players on the grassroots level. But then you run into really early specialization at every sport. So it's not uncommon to see in Hungary that we have an 8 or 9 year old player that is a hockey player only. And I think what's really positive, and I think something we should take from the North American model, is having multiple sports throughout the year for our players. Having this donor sports system or multi sport system is, I think, something that for longer term development is really important. So I think we're kind of stuck between making sure that our kids are with us, but also making sure that they're not too close with us, because then they're not really developing in terms of their motor learning or their skill development in other sports. I think that's a really big challenge for us right now.
Yeah, and like you said, getting kids into the sport at an early age, that's always um, one way to grow it. So, what are some of the initiatives that are in place to encourage young talent to take up ice hockey in Hungary to play whatever they want to play for the national team, or they just sort of want to try it out to begin with?
I think I think there's a lot of layers to that. Our players, we do a lot of recruiting. So we go, you ask any of the clubs, or you go around to the clubs, or even at the federation level, we go and travel the country. We organize a lot of events. All these clubs bring in preschools, schools, just kids from the neighboring areas to all these recruiting days or whatsoever, that they can try how to skate, or they can grab a stick in their hands, and I think that's a big part. So we're really focusing on that grassroots level, to make sure that we're bringing in enough players.
Yeah, and um, yeah, bringing those grassroots are very, very important. I know um, there's nothing probably more exciting than being able to put on the national jersey and playing with the crest on your
Yeah,
chest.
with that, I think it's important to know that, for us, it's been a quite a big goal for a number of years now, or a number of decades now, to have an NHL player. Hungary doesn't have an NHL player yet. So I think for us as the federation, it's quite a challenge to show a path for our players that, okay, you start here as an 8-year-old, and if you progress and you get better, and then you end up being a pro player, then you can make a living out of it. Because most families, I think, in Hungary, unless you have a hockey family that's been around the sport, they don't really know that you can use this as a hobby, or is this actually a job, or you can, it's there's a lack of information there. So for us, I think there's been a good trend with our players going abroad and playing in higher leagues. Like, we have some players in the Finnish league, Swedish league. Um, we have now coaches in Switzerland. So it's I think it's getting better every year. But I think it's really important for us to show that there's a path to actually living out of hockey, or making it to a higher league where you actually make enough money that you can have a comfortable life, only from hockey.
Yeah, because I remember I think one of my biggest role models when I was in Hungary was Gabor when he was there, and I know I remember those days of crying after the news came out of him and what had happened to him. But he definitely was somebody I know I looked up to when I played in Hungary. And then you were talking about the grassroots and having this opportunity to grow at the grassroots. So what are there any partnerships with other ice hockey federations to develop the sport in Hungary?
Mentioning Gabor, um, his name is actually worn on Székesfehérvár's Academy's jersey. Their academy's name is Ifjabbik Ocskai Gabor Academy. So I think he's been quite a big figure in our sports in Hungary, for sure. With cooperation, I think, as I said, there's kind of a lack of competition or due to the lower number of participants, there's a lack of competition. So for I think not only Hungary, but for all Central Eastern European countries, or Central European countries that are around us, cooperation is something that, if you don't do it, you're missing out too much. We have a really, really tight connection with Austria on the youth level. Our 18s and 20s, they play in a joint league, so they travel back and forth. I think that's a really good cooperation. Some players from Serbia are coming to Hungary also, that are also kind of helping us on the supply level. And then also, I think it's important to note that Transylvania, or politically what's called Romania now, their top teams play in the Erste League, which is the top Hungarian league. So there's 3 teams there that are playing in the Hungarian-based league, and I think that's an important cooperation because a lot of Transylvanian players or kids that grew up in hockey end up being in the Hungarian national team. So I think that's an important cooperation that we have.
Yeah, and you know, having some of those teams there obviously is very important, including Oshkosh Gabor's the academy there in Székesfehérvár. So I know this last year, um, the both the Hungarian women and the men's team got promoted to the top division. So how do you evaluate the progress that the Hungarian national team has taken on the international stage from being able to get promoted from the 1A to the top division?
Yeah, so Hungary's been promoted for the men's. They've been promoted 3 times already. This was our third time in last year in Bolzano. Um, we've never been able to get promoted and next year stay up in or not get relegated in the Group A level. So our next goal obviously is to make sure that we stay there, and we don't only stay as one of these countries that we call the lifting countries that are basically going up and down all the time. But I think it's always positive for the sports because having play in Canada or play in Finland is for the fans for sure. It's an interesting experience, and I think from a development standpoint also. Showing that if you're 8 years old and you work well, you can play Canada in 15 years is quite a good goal to have in front of you. I think it's important to note that due to the war in Ukraine, Russia and Belarus is not in the Group A, so we have to be realistic with where we are because if the war ended and those 2 countries came back, we would be down 2 in the rankings. But we have to seize the opportunity and live what we have. I think that it's really good feedback, and from our men's perspective, we have a really young team, one of the youngest teams we've had in the last 3 or 4 decades, actually. Now we have a Hungarian coach that's running that team as head coach, which I think is awesome, and that's something that we want to make sure that we keep that way. And like I said, we have some players in the top leagues in Europe from Finland or Sweden or our other countries, which I think is showing that we're getting competitive. Obviously, our one of the things we have to improve is depth. But I think the way our sport is moving, where intermissions and TV breaks are longer than they were before, Hungary might have a little advantage because Canada could always bring, or the US could always bring four lines that were the same level, and they wouldn't mind who was on the ice. With Hungary, obviously, we're a little front loaded. Our top lines can play in international level. Our bottom lines maybe are not as good at the international level, but it's something that we can, I think, certainly capitalize on.
And so you were also talking there for a minute there about how, with Belarus and Russia being out at the moment because of the war, you sort of have to be realistic about where you sit in the tournaments. Um, I do sort of have this question because I don't remember if you guys have a World Juniors team.
Yep.
That's going to go to the World Juniors. But what are your long-term goals for the national team in international tournaments, beyond just staying in the top division?
So yeah, at the youth level, we have under 20 and under 18 national teams, but we also have youth development programs that are under 19, 17, 16, 15. So basically, all the way down on the verticum. I think the lower we go, the more competitive we are. Like as a trend, we can see that with the 16s, I think we're quite okay. Like even when compared to the international standards. With the 18s and 20s, we're in Division 1A, which means that we're top 18 in both levels. And I think they're like on the long term, we can see that those teams are really like it's a really tight group. It's 6 teams in those divisions, but we're really fighting. We would have a chance both with the 18s or the 20s to move up into the top division, which is only 12 teams. But as I said, how close that division is, there's always a chance to get relegated. So I think competition is quite close, and it's good for us because that's a great way to develop. Um, so I think we're working there, and our players coming out of the academies, and a lot of them coming home from abroad, they're getting better. Um, with our what our goal is with the national team, I think is the number one goal would be to get to the Olympics. Um, Hungary has quite a rich tradition in the Olympic Games, and it's quite important on the national level that the Olympics is a thing. Obviously, the Winter Olympics, I think this is only my personal opinion, but I think they're in front of some big changes in the next coming years. Um, but for us, if we could get a shot or get a chance to play there, it would be awesome. I don't think we're ready yet, but I think with development, with coaches development, we would have a solid chance in a 10-year spectrum.
Yeah, and I did see, so I think it was this summer I did see, I'm not sure if it has opened yet, but there's that new rink opening up in Székesfehérvár, um, close to the Ocskai rink. So, how has the improvements of these facilities impacted the quality of hockey in Hungary?
Well, you know, it's an interesting and funny question because right now you'd come to Budapest or come to Hungary, and you'd be surprised about our rink qualities. Um, we have coaches from all over the world coming in, and I think we can say that we have world class facilities all around. Like you look at the academies, you look at some of the big clubs, you look at Fehérvár's new Alba Arena. It's I think as I would usually say it, there's much worse places that produce better players than we do. So I don't think the infrastructure is something that's limiting us in terms of development. I think we have more than what we need. Obviously, having infrastructure is awesome because it's not always an option to build new rings or new arenas. Now our job from a federation's perspective, I think, is to fill these with content, with meaningful content, and to make sure that the work happening in these nice facilities are as good as the surroundings.
Yeah, that that rink I looked at and I was like, man, that's a super nice rink to play in. Um,
Yeah, it's
so
nice. They now the Fehérvár has been doing really well in the Austrian league. Right now they're leading the league, and they have a stacked roster. They're really good this year with an awesome Hungarian head coach, which I think is really important. And they're also playing in the CHL, the Champions Hockey League, and I think like even their rink is something that's not out of the standards, or maybe even on the higher end of the standards.
yeah, and so I know in Hungary you guys or there's a lot of football fans. There's a lot of water polo fans. There's a lot of handball fans. So, what are the strategies being implemented to grow the fan base for ice hockey in Hungary?
I think for us, there's obviously a ton of ways, and I'm no marketing expert to say the least. For us, I think it's really important that with this funding system we have, our main goal is not only to focus on elite sports. We are on high performance sports rather. Our goal is to back. So our goal is to make sure that we involve as many people in our sports as possible. We organize amateur leagues, we organize little kids leagues, and we try to spread the word about what hockey is. We think that the hockey, especially in Hungary, but I think all around the world, is quite a nice social status, and we're trying to build off of that because I think hockey fans and hockey in general is a really friendly atmosphere. And I think I really believe that once we are able to put skates on little kids or fans, and they can experience what skating is or what it feels like to attend a game, we have a really high rate of retention with people coming into our arenas.
And so I do have this question. So I do know that the World Junior Showcase gets hosted every year here in the United States at USA Hockey Arena. So I did want to know that what is the federation's vision for ice hockey in Hungary over the next 10 years and possibly even joining the World Junior Showcase one of these summers?
So us with our youth teams, we typically attend the Super Challenge in Kárstad, which is quite a good tournament in August also. We also have the last couple of years we've had Team USA and Hockey Canada with their youth teams in Budapest as a kickoff in August. A chance for our players to showcase themselves. Um, but I think right now our focus is in house in Europe to make sure that we're making sure that these kids are visible on a European scale, and I think next step is North America then.
And then are there any plans for Hungary to host an international ice hockey event?
Yeah, well, it's been in the talk for a little bit that maybe hosting the World Championships at the Group A level would be something that we'd be interested in. Um, it's quite a process, and right now the 2029 World Championships is still looking for a host. That's something that we're trying to evaluate and see if it's feasible or not. Um, but one of the cool things we've done the last couple of years is hosting Team Canada for the World Championship preparation in Budapest. I think it's been awesome that we've been filling the MVM Dome, which is an 18,000 seat arena. Um, it's for fans. It's awesome to see hockey just grow and see Team Canada competing against the Hungarian national team. And also, I think for the Canadian friends of ours, after a long NHL season, coming into Budapest and having a couple of days off, playing a preparation game for the Worlds, and enjoying the city is something that I think is something they've been really, really enjoying. So we hope to have them back for as long as possible.
Yeah, yeah, that's definitely a good one. So, for all our Hungarian listeners, we're about to switch over to Hungarian.